a better showing for the offense. Like I said, Caleb wasn't a lot of yards, but I feel like it was a real efficient game. I think it was his best, probably his most mature game, I'll probably say, the way he played, where he made the smart decisions. He's been getting the ball out quick, period, this entire time. But it really felt like this one, he had like a better feel of the offense, I guess. Like, he stayed in the pocket when he had to. That touchdown pass to DJ Moore was chef's kiss. Like, the way he stood there despite all the pressure coming, he's going through all his reads and still getting off an accurate ball. He was 17 for 23, 157 yards passing, 1 touchdown. And he got sacked 3 times, but I just really think that's what it's going to be like, this offensive line. The rushing, all together, the team, they had 28 carries, 131 yards rushing, and 2 touchdowns, 1 for DeAndre Swift, 1 for Roschon Johnson. DeAndre Swift also led the receivers, 7 receptions, 72 yards. And it was pretty, spread out. Cole Kmet got 3 catches, DJ Moore got 3, Keenan Allen had 3, Rome only had 1, but a pretty balanced attack. I feel like, to me, I said on the show on Friday, I said on 79th and Hallis last Wednesday, that all player coach meetings usually end in one of 2 ways. Either they really go great, or this takes the season to hell. And I think that from what we saw at the beginning, it looked like it was going bad. I was like, what did they talk about in that meeting? Because it don't look like they learned anything. Like, Waldron still calling screens with Cole Kmet on 3rd down. But then they started to get into their rhythm. And one thing I have to give Waldron credit for, it's the second half in a row where he's called a better game. And so I got to give him props for. You saw DeAndre Swift. Khalil Herbert was not out there at all, which I personally didn't have a problem for, because I said this is the offseason. My hot take was I thought he was actually going to get traded, because I didn't think there would be no use for him with DeAndre and with Roschon. And you really just saw like the balance and the dedication to the run. I think there's maybe only 1 or 2 shotgun runs. I feel like they learned from that. I think as we go on through the season, I want to see more targets for your other weapons. You know what I'm saying? I think that'll come with Caleb learning and Waldron learning at the same time. But overall, I really don't have any complaints for how the offense looked. Now, of course, they got to do this again. I think like Mercedes Lewis said in his post game, anybody can do it one time. Consistency is what you're going to see from here on out, man. Bang, what did you see from the offense yesterday, and what do you like the progress from Waldron? What were the Waldron grade here?
Look, I like the fact that we ran the ball and we stayed consistent in running the ball. It wasn't about having to see a specific running back. It was just about using that damn running back. And they made it a case to get Roschon and Swift into it, and this was the Swift game. This was the game that we was expecting him to have a couple of games ago. This is the game where, when you look at his contract, this is what we paid you to do. Not just to be a change of pace, but to change the game, and that's what he did with a lot of his touches. And Roschon was the bully out there, and that's what we needed. Now, with Khalil Herbert, it makes me wonder what is the future for him. Do you look at him as one of those trade pieces to get an extra pick for next year's draft or whatever? Could you see a three-man weave in the backfield? I don't know with all of the weapons that you have on the other skill positions. With that being said, though, I did like what I saw from the offense overall. Yeah, I was also one of those people that was like, here we go with this shit. This is how we're going to start off. But not only did I like that they kept with their game plan, which smoothed me out a little bit, the second half adjustments. Like, what I'm noticing with this Bears team that I don't think a lot of people are talking about is that the second half turns out to be a little bit of a different game, especially on the defensive side of the ball. That this team this is the best second half adjustments team that I've seen in quite some time. We used to bitch, moan, and complain about how no matter what happened when Matt Nagy and them get into the locker room, ain't shit gonna change. We gonna get our ass whooped. And we was worried about that a little bit last year as well. But this team, second half, makes me more comfortable to know that we're not gonna be out of any game if they keep acting the way that they acting and doing what they're doing, to the point where I still say this. I'm consistent with this. The offense is going to take time. The way that the seasons, we talked about this in the chat, the way that the seasons are break down, we just had our preseason. If the offense could get into shape in this next quarter of the season, and if the Bears continue to do what they're doing when it comes to second half adjustments, we're not going to be out of any game this season.
I think the defense alone, like you just said, is going to keep us or keep them. I'm making my media chops on. Keep them in the game going forward. Dante, what'd you like that you saw from St. Waldron? What grade would you give him for yesterday's performance?
I would give him a B. I would give him a B. I think what I like more than anything is he put his players in a position to succeed. The play that stood out the most to me is a simple play, but the touchdown run from Roschon Johnson, when he put the backup center in at fullback, and they just, ran old school downhill and got the touchdown. It was no more running lateral, no more trying to do fancy trick plays at the red zone, in the red zone. It was more so trying to put the ball in the end zone. Even the misses from Caleb, you saw them consistently trying to move the ball down the field, trying to get the ball in the end zone. And I think those of us like myself who hyped it, I made the joke about if he throws 40, I'll get the USC tattoo. But we're coming to reality that, he's learning. It's still a process. This offense is still growing. We still have a, first year in the system. I know, like I said, Scott, they sold us, they sold us a dream the way they hyped it at the beginning. Like, we've been putting it in place since March. And so, even with all that talk, you still have to get out there on the field and actually do it. But I like that, like I said, I feel like at the end of the day, he put his best players in a position to succeed. And that's something we got to see going forward. And also, a lot of the rotation, you saw the best players out there. It was no more just random,
no DeAndre Carter.
No DeAndre Carter. I'm with you, Scott. I think Velus has probably played his last snap with the Bears. A lot of inactives from him. So, but I like that. I want to see the best players. Keenan was back, and let's continue to do that and build from that.
So, Braggs, I know when we were at camp this year, I think one thing we saw from Caleb, I know even from being there doing the OTAs and stuff, is like sometimes it started off slow, but once he starts to get it, it really heats up. We saw that at the beginning of the camp. Sometimes he wasn't getting a little bit, then it got better and better. We're seeing the same thing here. What did you see from Caleb and how Waldron kind of used Caleb, and what did you like overall for what you saw from Waldron yesterday?
Yeah, I mean, to me, you're right. The camp kind of has become a microcosm of what we've seen in the regular season so far, struggling early and getting better and better as it goes along. And by the end of camp, they were playing very well. And you were like, that's what fooled a lot of us, even the people that were trying to stay guarded and like, I'm not going to get overhyped. And then by the end of camp, you're like, all right, I'm hyped. And Hard Knocks, I think, had a little bit to do with that too. Like, showing them, beating the brakes off Cincinnati in the rain in the joint practice, and now all of a sudden it's like, well, Cincinnati's a good team, and that means the Bears should be good. Well, we were so worried about how many reps Caleb was getting in those preseason games. We forgot to ask how many reps DeAndre Swift in the run game were getting in those preseason games. And they didn't give him any. And it's shown here. He had as many yards here in week 4 as he had all of weeks 1 through 3. And so when you talk about Waldron, having to adjust and acclimate to his personnel, I mean, week 1, he had Gerald Everett has more snaps than Cole Kmet. That's completely reversed. Gerald Everett's barely getting on the field now. To your guys' point, you don't see DeAndre Carter out there on Sunday or yesterday. And so it's just little by little trying to figure out who you want. Last week, goal line, 4 runs. You don't have Roschon Johnson with the ball. This week, you get on the goal line. The very first play is jumbo package with Doug Kramer as your fullback. And then they did that play again in the fourth quarter on a big 3rd and 1 where they needed it. And those are attitude run calls. This is what we are showing you what we're running. Try and stop us. And I was surprised the Bears got both of those so convincingly. Like, for them to have not really shown that. And then I just think they said enough's enough. And Waldron said enough's enough. The offensive line said enough's enough. DeAndre Swift and Roschon Johnson said enough's enough. So good on them. And that's where it requires us to have some patience for these guys to figure it out, because everybody's like, well, what the heck? How come you didn't have this down week 1? Yeah, that's the goal. But at the end of the day, as long as they do figure it out, I'll be happy with that and find a way to win a football game as you get there. So Shane Waldron, you talk about adjustments, or you talk about, this team having great second half adjustments. I completely agree with you. But even in this game, 0 points in the fourth quarter or in the first quarter. They've had 3 points overall in all 4 first quarters of the season. The defense too, if you look, like this was the first game the Bears actually played with a lead. And I get a lot of that has to do with the offense, but if the defense wants to hold themselves to a higher standard like Jalen Johnson's trying to preach, then you want to be elite level defense. You got to hold it down. You got to do everything you can to turn the football over like you did, Montez Sweat, and put Caleb Williams in a position to make a play and get a touchdown, on a short field. Those are the things that we're used to seeing in the Lovie Smith era, and that's what this defense ultimately is going to have to do. And you've got winnable games coming up against the Panthers, Jaguars. And then after the bye, you got some games, where with the Commanders, Cardinals, and Patriots. I'm not saying they can lose any of these games, but they can certainly win these games as well. And it's going to require, obviously to continue these second half adjustments, but let's try to get off to a faster start here in the first half, in the first quarter. So we're not, all stressing out and putting stress on the team. Because you can't lean on this and expect everything to come into place, in a 3-0 game in the second half. But overall, you got to love what you saw from Shane Waldron in this game, and you got to love the attitude adjustment by the entire team in general.
And to kind of piggyback off what you were saying about, how there's still stuff to work on in a winnable schedule. That's why I said that yesterday was such an important game. As I said on Friday, I don't want to put must win early in the season, but there's a very distinct difference between 2-2 and 1-3. And DJ Moore said that on Mully and Hall this morning, you start going on a losing streak, you just dig yourself a bigger and bigger hole there, and it's kind of hard to get out of. Now, you feel much better about the season. One thing Lovie Smith used to always say, quarters. Now, I know we have an odd number of games now. It's not 16 anymore, but still, technically, the first quarter of the season, you come out as 2-2, especially as slow as your offense is looking, I'll take that. Mikey, I'm going to kind of change the question a little bit for you. Tell me, number one, what you thought about what Waldron did great last night, what you think he can do better of, and just what you think about Caleb's progress each week.
Well, for me, one thing that I have been preaching is I wanted to see more intermediate routes. I felt like obviously we seen that Caleb had been taking a beating in the pocket, getting sacked 6-7 times in consecutive weeks. And I felt like all of the routes were long developing. Yesterday, we saw kind of a more short game plan, a lot of quick outs, a lot of stuff to the running back. DeAndre Swift had, 7 receptions. They were utilizing him in different ways. Cole Kmet being able to, to be that security blanket for Caleb Williams. Keenan Allen, I believe one of the first third down completions was a tight throw to Keenan Allen on the right hash. I think there was two DBs draped over him. He was able to get that. So I really like that. And then there was a balance, 23 pass attempts for Caleb Williams, 17 of 23 for 157. I like that. They were able to have that balance of the run game and the pass game. I think what really worked is, that they were able to kind of start chipping away at the run game. I believe DeAndre Swift had about almost 6 yards, per carry. Obviously, that's a little bit. Yeah. It's a little bit, exaggerated because of the one big long run. And then, Roschon was averaging, I think, close to 3.5 per carry. And you got to look at it for that. They were using him on more short goal, short distances. But it worked. My thing is, we're witnessing the anti-Matt Nagy. You guys remember Matt Nagy, the first 15 scripted plays? It looked amazing.
Yeah.
The first 15 plays for Shane Waldron, I don't know what the fuck we're doing. I was one of the people that tweeted right away, I don't know why I subject myself to this. I'm 35 years old. I don't know why I keep doing this to myself. And then, the defense will reel me back in. So I just want to see us for once go ahead and get out to a quick start, put up 7 right away, or, at least get some positive momentum, get a couple first downs, within that first possession. Because one thing I'm noticing is, too, a lot of teams are just deferring. We're going to defer. Put the rookie quarterback out there. Let's see what they can do right away. So the Bears are obviously going to have to adjust to that and get off to, a hot start. But what I really did like was just the intermediate routes. I do believe that the deep balls will come to, the wide receivers deep down the field. Eventually, it's going to take time. But I was really glad in how Caleb Williams was able to spread the ball around and kind of in that short to intermediate range, like he was automatic.
So cool.
Triple double hat trick, I know the code too. Ice trade, go for trade, yeah we cold too. Getting paper on these player haters, old news. Money on the other line, so I'm not gonna hold you. Money on the other line, so I'm not gonna hold you. Money on the other line, so I'm not gonna hold you. Money on the other line, so I'm not